Hi everyone, welcome back to another very exciting Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. I am your host, Jesus Ramirez. How's it going? I can already see a lot of action in the chat. Good to see you everyone. Good to see you, Steve, Michelle, Sam, Sean, Mia, Clarissa. Good to see everybody here with me. Let me know in the chat where you're watching from. I hope that you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where in the world you're in. And today we're gonna talk about how to create how to turn a summer photo into a winter photo in Photoshop. So we're gonna take a photo of a beautiful summer scene and turn that into a wintry scene with snow. So we're gonna create digital snow, and we're gonna work with adjustment layers, filters, and a whole bunch of fun stuff to recreate snow and a snowy scene inside of Photoshop. So before we get started, let me quickly show you guys my screen, and from here you can see the page behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, and make sure that you click on this big blue button to take the challenge with me, and also scroll down to the bottom of the page to the July 28th box. Every morning a new box unlocks with the challenge for that particular day. Today we're going to be changing seasons, where we're going to transform a summer photograph into a winter scene using adjustment layers and blending modes. Make sure that you click on the Get Started button so that you can download the PSD to follow along with me. If I go a little too fast or you're coming in later on, make sure to watch the replay on the Watch Video blue button here. And if you missed any of the other Daily Creative Challenges, you can watch the ones that you missed by clicking on the big blue button. So I'll give you a moment to download that. While you're downloading that, let me check out the chat. I can see that people are leaving a whole bunch of comments and it's going too fast, so let me scroll up and see what's going on. So we have Marsha from Toronto. Winter is coming, Tarath, definitely. We have, oh my god, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Shakawat from Bangladesh. Jennifer from Ohio. Hey Ted, how's it going? Good to see you. Estat from India. Awesome. So we have people watching from all over the world. Super, super cool. Thank you so much for joining me. Cool Max t-shirt. That's right. This is a Adobe Max shirt that I got. I want to say Adobe Max 2015. I got it in San Diego. Whenever the San Diego Adobe Max was, which I think was was that 2017? Somebody will remind me in the chat. I should remember when the San Diego Max was, because that was my first time as an Adobe Max speaker. So I should have that in my head, but I guess I just don't remember either 2015 or 2017. Anyway, the point is that the Photoshop team gave me this super cool Photoshop t-shirt. Awesome. But yeah, let's get right into it. So the one thing I should mention before we get started actually is that you need to click on this community chat link so that you can open up Discord. And from Discord, this is where we all can communicate as a community. From here, right up above my head, you'll see the current challenge tab. And this is where you can submit the work that you create with me during the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges. If we scroll up, you'll see some of the rock text effect that we were working on yesterday. Super cool work. And if we keep going further, we'll see some of the duotone effect that we work on. I actually like how in this particular photo, the artist duplicated the same image twice and gave it a different duotone effect, which looks fantastic. This is super cool with the base here using that technique that we talked about yesterday. Super, super cool work. So make sure that you submit your work onto Discord so that you can interact with me, the other mentors, Sam Valdier, Claudio from Print My Soul, and also the Adobe team, Chad, Gus, Sam, and everybody else. So make sure that you submit your work onto Discord, and if you need the direct link, right up above my head, here you go. This is how you can get into Discord. And let me also talk a little bit about the Photoshop, or not the Photoshop, the community gallery. So if you're doing a Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge, an XD Daily Creative Challenge, or an Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge, you can use the corresponding hashtag, in this case PS Daily Challenge, to have an opportunity to be featured in the curated gallery. So if you go into behance.net/galleries/challenges, you'll be able to see some of the galleries that were selected some of the work that's been selected to be featured on this gallery. So I would come in here and check them out, maybe get inspired, but make sure that you add the corresponding hashtag so that you too can have an opportunity to be featured on this gallery. Super, super cool stuff. Again, PS Daily Challenge. When you click on Create Project, you'll have a section for adding a hashtag to your project. We have a question in the chat. Can I post yesterday's challenge tomorrow? Sure, you can post it whenever you like. As soon as you're done, feel free to upload it. So yeah, you can definitely post challenges late if you haven't caught up. No problem with that. Cool. Little late, but made it. Good to see you here, Robin from Arizona. Awesome. Cool. All right, so one other thing I should mention is if you're watching from YouTube, make sure that you head over into behance.net/live, behance.net/live, because I can't see your comments if you're leaving them on YouTube. I can only see the comments from Behance, so behance.net/live. All right, so by now you probably had an opportunity to download the file that we're going to work with, which is this file here, the Daily Creative Challenge page, behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. If you scroll down, you'll see it here, changing seasons. Click on Get Started. So the file that you should have is this one here, which is an Adobe stock photo. You're free to use your own photo once you practice with this file if you like. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it into a wintry scene. We're gonna add snow and a bunch of different effects to create the illusion of a winter scene. So that's what we're gonna work on today. All right, so so the question is, what the hashtag PS Daily Challenge? Yeah, the hashtag is PS Daily Challenge. Cool. So with this image, what we want to do is we first want to remove some of the color, right? Because if we're working on a winter scene, we need to make it feel like it's winter. So it wouldn't be so green, it wouldn't be so blue, it wouldn't have all those warm, vibrant colors. So it'll be a little bit colder, mostly grays, very dull. So why don't we work on that first? And one of the easiest ways that we can achieve the effect that we're going for is by creating a hue and saturation adjustment layer. The hue and saturation adjustment layer allows you to adjust the hue and saturation and lightness of an image by using the corresponding sliders that you see here. So the hue slider simply shifts the hues of the image. The saturation slider increases or decreases the intensity, and the lightness slider increases or decreases the lightness of the image. What we're gonna do here is click on this little hand icon, and I'm just gonna click on one of the greens here. So when I click on the greens, like the grass here, you'll notice that Photoshop will select yellows. I know I click on the green color, but it selected the yellows, and that's okay. There's probably a little bit more yellow in the color that I selected than green. Not a problem. You could also see this bar here at the bottom. You can see the two bars, the two solid bars here. If I select a color within that hue, it would change it completely. And then you see the bar with this other little icon here on the left, same thing on the right hand side. So anything in between those two sets of hues will be a gradual transition. So I wouldn't necessarily completely change the hue, it'll be more of a gradual transition. So when I start adjusting the saturation, you can see that I can start bringing down the intensity of the greens in the image, making it feel more as if it was snowy, which is what we want. And in your image, you can click and drag on these icons to include more colors or less. So in this case, I don't want the cabin to be as affected. So I'm gonna click and drag this little point here to the right, which will bring out some of the yellows and red in that image, and that's exactly what I want. And I wanna include more of the green, so I can click and drag these to the right so that I include more of the greens like so. Before and after. Very, very simple. What I'm going to do now is click on this hand icon again and click on the sky. Notice that now I'm selecting the cyans, and I can bring down the saturation as well. Maybe not all the way, but I'll bring it pretty far in, and I can increase the range of the colors that I affect and maybe add a little more saturation like so. Just because I don't want the sky to be so bright blue, because this is supposed to be a wintry scene, so it's cloudy, it's foggy, there's going to be snow, so a bright blue sky definitely wouldn't work. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna create a show you guys a technique on how to add snow to like the grass, the trees, and everything else. But I'm gonna do it in one layer. And the reason that I'm doing it in one layer is to save time in your own projects. Maybe create different layers, create some layers for the trees, create some layers for the mountain, maybe some for the grass. You'll get better results, but even just with one layer, we're gonna get good results on here. So let me show you how that works. All I'm gonna do is create a solid color fill layer, and I'll just select an off-white color, not completely white, just off-white, and press OK. Then I'll right click to the side of the layer here and bring up the layer style window. Under blend diff, I can bring out the darkest colors of the image like you see there. See that? See if I bring them out, it sort of seems like snow. So I'll hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac to split those in half and create a smooth transition between invisible and visible points. So you can adjust them accordingly. And what I'm trying to create now is the illusion of snow on the trees. And you'll notice that I'm really getting a lot of that white on that cabin. In this case, we're lucky that the cabin is a completely different color than the rest of the scene. There's a lot of red in that cabin. That's what is creating those browns. So what I'm going to do is take advantage of that and go into the blend diff and select red, and watch what happens when I start adjusting the white point here. See how the cabin and even the sky starts coming back? So that's what I want. I'm going to hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac again, click on this white point, and create a smooth transition so that the cabin comes back like so. I can even go into the blue channel and do the same thing. Just drag the blue over to the left and see when I get more of that sky back without affecting the other areas, like so. And I'll press OK when I'm done, before and after. And actually, the color seems a little dull, and that might be because I just added too much of that red channel here. So let me adjust that accordingly just to bring back some of the white that's here on the trees. Again, I'm using one layer for the entire image, but you'll probably get better results if you use multiple layers. I'll quickly show you what I mean by that. I'll just click and drag this layer into the new layer icon, and then I'll just make I'll delete the layer mask and just make a selection around these trees here, just because I couldn't really get them with the adjustments that I made. So with that selection active, I'll create a layer mask, and now I'm only targeting that tree. If I make an adjustment now to that layer, you can see how the adjustment will only be contained to that tree. So now I'm really trying to get just the contents of that tree. Something like that. Obviously, I would need to go and fine tune it a little more, but I think that you get the idea. Also, with the original layer, we can select the layer mask, and I can paint with black using a soft brush. In other words, the hardness is set to 0, and just paint with black here on the sky, just so that we don't affect the sky or maybe even the cabin. I can also paint on the cabin here. See that? So the cabin is not as affected. Totally up to you what you decide to affect on your image. I know I've been talking for like 10 minutes now, so let me check the comments and see if there's any questions. Cool. Let me see. Well, for pandas is great. Yeah. Cool. I just see a lot of comments about different places where it's very cold, like Switzerland or Austria. Awesome. Yeah, it looks like there's no questions. That's pretty good, I guess. I did a good job in explaining it. But anyway, the point is that now that I have these layers selected, I'm going to, you know what? Maybe I'll paint with white here as well, so I can get some of that snow on this other tree, just because it's not really on there. But again, using multiple layers will give you better results because you can target accordingly. In this case, I just did it with basically 2 layers, so I'm just adding a little more snow in these other areas. But anyway, what I'm gonna do now is show you how I can add like a layer of snow on top of the cabin. And what I'll do is I'll simply create a blank layer. That's all I need to do. And I'll use that same off-white color that I was using earlier, just off-white. And I'm just gonna paint with white on top of the roof here. And this time I actually want the hardness pretty high up, maybe like 94%, so that the edges are hard and they're not soft and blurry. So I'm just gonna quickly paint along the edges. And by the way, you may not know, if you click once in Photoshop with a brush tool, hold shift and click again, Photoshop will make a straight line between those 2 points. So click once, set a point, hold shift and click again, and Photoshop will just run that brush stroke straight through to the second area that you clicked on. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just defining the edges of my roof here. And obviously I'm going very quickly here because there's so much I want to show you, and I have about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes left. So I'm just going to go very quickly here. So all this is snow. This is all snow that fell onto the rooftop, and I just want to make it seem as realistic as possible, but I need to go fairly quickly as well. So we'll say that top part is good, and I'm using the bracket keys on the keyboard to increase and decrease the size of my brush as I paint. And by the way, if you make a mistake like something like that, you can hold the tilde key, that's the key next to the number 1 to the left of the number 1 under the escape key in North American keyboards, and you can paint to erase using the same brush tip that you have active. That is new in Photoshop 2020, which was released in November of 2019. Or was it October? Either or. I always forget when Max is, as you saw earlier in the introduction. I couldn't remember where I got this shirt, where the Max that I got this shirt. I don't even remember when Max was last year. Was it in October or November? Somebody in the chat will let me know. 10 minutes left, actually. Yeah, a little bit under less than 10 minutes. I have to be off at minute 25. But anyway, so we have the snow there on top of the rooftop, and what I'm gonna do now is double click to the side of the layer, and I'm just gonna click on bevel and emboss, and I'll reset to default. And from here I can just increase the size of my bevel. See that? See how it looks like a layer of snow? And I can decrease the opacity here for the shadow, like so. And also I want to add a little bit of texture to it. So if you were not with me on day number 1 on the welcome screen stream, you probably didn't catch this. So I'm going to show it now. So I just pressed OK. And what I want you to do is go into Window, and under Patterns, click on this flyout menu and make sure that you select Legacy Patterns and More, so that you can have this Legacy Patterns and More drop down. And what that will allow you to do is that when you're in the layer style window, you can add a pattern, and I'll reset it to default again so that we can all do it together. And you can use the patterns that are here in this legacy folder. And you can select whichever one you want, but from the 2019 patterns folder, there's this dirt pattern that you see there. And you can of course adjust the scale if you need to. In this case, I'm not really worried about the scale, but what I'm gonna do is change the blending mode to luminosity, and then just bring the opacity down like so. And I just want to get just a hint of a pattern there, so it's not completely smooth, not completely white. It just shows some detail in there. So that's my snow. And what I need to do now is simply continue painting on this layer with the same brush. So maybe I can paint this other side here. There we go. We have our snow there. And maybe the snow on top here, I can just hold shift and click and it'll make a straight line. And maybe add some snow here to these areas. Again, I'm going very, very fast here, but I think that you get the idea. And I can add one more of those. For example, I can add one more layer here, layer number 2. And it's always a good idea to name your layers, but now I'm looking at the time and I don't know if I want to spend some time naming my layers because there's still a couple more things I want to show you. But basically what I'm doing is just painting with that same white on this area here. And what I'm going to do is do something similar to what I did with the other layer. Just add bevel and emboss. In this case, I'll increase the size a little bit and also add a pattern overlay. And maybe this one could be just a little bit more visible, so I'll increase the opacity and I'll press OK. So then I have like this hill there with snow. Cool. So this is the effect that we're creating. Is looking pretty good. Obviously in your image, just spend a little more time fine-tuning those small details. What I'm gonna do now is show you a technique for creating snow. So I'm going to create a new layer, fill it with black. Black is my foreground color. So I can press Alt and Backspace. That's Option Delete on the Mac. Then I can go into Filter, Noise, add noise, and just add a little bit of noise to your image, something like that. And go into Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and blur it a little bit, but make sure that you can kind of see the snow, and press OK. Then you can go into Image, Adjustments, and Threshold. Threshold simply makes pixels either black or white. That's it, either or. And you can go into something like here where you can start seeing some of those dots there, and that will become our snow. I'm gonna go into Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just blur it a little bit, maybe something like that, and press OK. What I'm gonna do now is with this layer selected, I'm gonna go into Edit, Define Pattern, and I'll just call it Snow. So we have a snow pattern, and it's the second black one here. I'll delete this first one. So this second black one is the pattern that we just created. So if you notice, if I hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and drag it out into my layers panel, it'll just create a layer that has that pattern in there. See that? It's basically a seamless pattern. And you can scale it, or you can make it smaller, totally up to you. In this case, I'm going to scale it, make it really, really large, like so. And then I'll rasterize my layer so that we're working with pixels. I don't need the layer mask, so I'll delete it just so that it doesn't confuse us. And I can go into Filter, Blur, Motion Blur, and I can just find the appropriate motion blur to make it look like snow. Maybe something like that. Press OK and change the blending mode to screen. And if it's not bright enough, you can always go into Image, Adjustment, Levels, and then just adjust the levels to make that snow really come out. And what I would do is I would create different levels of snow to give the image depth. So what I mean by that is I would just create another one like so. In this one, I probably would increase the scale just a tiny little bit, not as much, and do the same thing. Delete the layer mask, right click, rasterize it, Filter, Blur, Motion Blur, and maybe change the motion a little bit to a different, so it's not exactly the same, and maybe decrease the distance a little, like so. Change the blending mode to screen, and you can see now how we can start creating depth in the image by doing so. So I would just replicate maybe 4 or 5 of these different sizes going different ways so it looks and feels more realistic. And let me see, we got like 2 minutes. So like the last thing I wanted to show you, well, there's more things that I wanted to show you. So what I'll do is this. I'm gonna just put everything into one smart object. You can select layers by clicking on the top one, holding Shift, and clicking on the bottom one, and that will select all the layers in between. Right click and select Convert to Smart Object. And right now, if I go into Filter and Camera Raw, what's gonna happen is that you're gonna have this weird looking thing here. You see how like the image is just so much bigger? That's because there was pixels coming out of the image there. So what you can do is simply press Control A, Command A on the Mac, go into Image and Crop. We're working with a smart object. All the contents are inside, so we're not really cutting any pixels, so it's all good. Then I can go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and that should work. And actually it didn't work, so no worries about that. Never mind. Actually, what I really needed to do is I needed to put everything inside of a group here, create a layer mask like so, and then do the crop here, and then save it. And then if I'm not mistaken, actually, sorry guys, I'm not, there we go. That's what I needed to do. I needed to crop it in here. Sorry about that. And then make sure I get everything. There we go. Got it all. It's still all there. And I just need to make sure that it fits within my canvas now. There we go. Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and even though I'm a little off, that's okay. And what I'm gonna do now is simply go into the basic panel, and from the basic panel, I'm just gonna make the image a little bit cooler because you know it's winter, so it should be a little cold. And I'm gonna increase the dehaze. So when you dehaze, you remove haze. But if you decrease it, you add haze. So I'm gonna just add a little bit of haze to the image, like so. Maybe bring down the vibrance a little bit so it's not so saturated. And from the color mixer, you can adjust the oranges to adjust the intensity of the cabin. Totally up to you. Notice that we missed the roses here. So maybe we can have the roses be extremely saturated because they're thriving in the winter, even though that probably wouldn't happen. But in this case, I kind of like having those red roses there. So I'll press OK, and this is our wintry scene in Photoshop, and just in time because I have like 1 minute left. What I'm gonna do now is quickly show you guys the schedule. Up next is Aurelia doing vector art. Then we have Andrew doing the Daily Creative Challenge. After that, we have Chris doing mobile app and design. We're gonna have the XD Daily Creative Challenge at 2 p.m. with Andrea, and we're gonna end the day at 2:30 p.m. Pacific with a doodle therapy with Alice Lee. So I know that was a little too quick, so if you missed something, the recording is always there. Just click on that big blue button that reads watch video. Thank you guys so much for being here with me. I know that this one went quick, but I look forward to seeing what you guys create, and I look forward to seeing your work on Behance. So make sure that you submit your work onto Behance and also into the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge page here under current challenge. All right, so make sure you check that out. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being with me. It was awesome being here with you. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Thank you so much.